I'm sorry, you're supposed to be who?
It's not obvious.
I mean,
I am the BBEG.
really?
What do you mean, really?
I don't know. The whole evil incarnate thing is a bit played out, don't you think? Whee! Hi, I'm RPG Van Winkle, and I make cool tools to help you play better games. Whether it's a level boss or the final showdown, fantasy role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder tend to culminate into big encounters with the evil mage, or the powerful mind flayer, the scheming beholder, you know, the BBEG. For the uninitiated, BBEG stands for Big Bad Evil Guy, which could be a girl or a GIF. In any case, it's shorthand for a critical antagonist that stands between your players and an important goal. Confession: the BBEG was never my strong suit. In fact, I've always struggled with role-playing villains believably. Aha! I've got you now! Haha! Now I've got you. Got you now, I have. When I was a D&D nerd in the 80s, we mostly saw what I would call cartoon villains. They were bad because they were just bad. Or, to steal a quote from an actual 80s cartoon, because they were drawn that way. So, in our D&D games, a creature personifying the essence of pure evil was plenty enough reason for them to be the BBEG, and consequentially, for us to fireball their sorry butts. Fast forward to the present day. Decades of believable and complex villains have graced pages and screens since then. For conscientious DMs, it sets the bar higher. I needed a way to develop villains with more gravitas, that I could roleplay more believably, to build more immersive storylines and encounters for my players. But developing believable, engaging, even just interesting BBEGs is just not easy. There are so many overly simple stereotypes. It can be easy to fall into the well-worn grooves of an overplayed trope when it comes to a villain's motivations and personality. The last thing I want to be as a DM is predictable. Creating epically cool BBEGs is all about storytelling. After all, a BBEG is more than a monster. It's an NPC, a non-player character. The operative word being character. A good non-player character is more than stats on a sheet, and a villain is a very special kind of non-player character. They are a primary antagonist in the story. The richer and fuller they are, the more captivating your adventure or campaign becomes. To solve my BBEG conundrum, I turned to the experts. I read books and articles from game designers and book authors in an effort to understand how great villain characters are created. My research yielded a ton of valuable insights that I was able to compress into a few powerful shortcuts for you, the epic game master of yore. The result is the BBEG Builder, a fast and fun way to build better villains by asking some key questions. Like all of my products, it's really a thought exercise with carefully curated prompts. It's designed to help you capture tiny gems of imagination and store them in a way that's easy to review before and during a session, like a bag of holding for your creative ideas. Breathing life into your BBEG starts with first understanding their motivations. It often helps to consider typical motivations for the canonical monster types in D&D, Pathfinder, or other similar TTRPGs. Aberrations can make tough BBEGs because their motivations are largely inexplicable to your PCs. These creatures are aliens to the time and place of your adventures. They may have access to memories that date back eons, or experiences on other planes that are beyond the comprehension of mere mortals. They might also just be really weird. Allow your imagination to slip the knots of logic and unwind the string theory of your world a bit when you consider the motivations of an aberrant BBEG. Animals, beasts, and monstrosities. These are generally just hungry and territorial creatures. In order to make a truly compelling bestial BBEG, you might want to gift them with at least a modicum of intelligence to have some more complex motivational opportunities. Just consider that their context is still from the perspective of an animal. Dominance, scarcity, and survival might play more heavily into their context than other types of creatures. Constructs and automatons, they generally just follow instructions, you know? But a construct inhabited by the consciousness of some other entity could be a cool way to motivate them as a BBEG. Imagine some extraplanar entity unable to enter the material plane outside of the body of a construct. Dragons make awesome BBEGs. They're smart, terrifically greedy, and often have long and complex histories. They like to usurp power, but they're far too narcissistic and lazy to actually do too much ruling. Essentially, they are all personality. Elementals are even more inexplicable than aberrations. What does the aspect of fire itself want? Tastier logs? I guess elemental BBEGs might be motivated by maintaining or disturbing the balance of the planes. They could be in cahoots with or influenced by a fiend or a celestial of some kind, or maybe they've been corrupted, reprogrammed by a clever aberration. Fey creatures, on the other hand, can be very fun BBEGs, especially if you play into their frivolity. Things that seem trivial to normal folk can be of monumental importance to the Fey, especially when it comes to aesthetics or childish melodramas. Giant folk are much more like their humanoid cousins, tribal and political, and they exist within a caste system, the ordning, with some kinds of giants being more fancy, intelligent, technological than others. Humanoids are probably the easiest and most universal because they're the most like us. They struggle for dominance and culture, power and wealth just like we do. They wrestle with morality and mortality and childhood traumas. They can be cunning, violent, and fascinatingly charismatic. Interplanar entities like celestials and fiends are concerned with control and influence. They're ancient, but they seem to be fairly single-minded and petty, good and evil, the purest binary. Consider getting super personal about their motivations. It might help steer you clear of the simple good versus evil tropes of, the devil and the angels. Good Omens, one of my favorite all-time series, introduces a lot of ridiculous politics and even workplace humor to the ancient celestial rivalries. It's super fun. Plants, oozes, fungi, flora can make interesting BBEGs if you add a little brain power. Just try not to make them leafy humans. Plants are weird. They have a different perception of reality. Try to imagine how they might perceive the world. Fun fact, the largest sentient organism on Earth is a giant underground fungal network, a big mushroom. Finally, we have the undead, always a fun choice for BBEGs. While lesser undead tend to be acting from a fairly basic compulsion, more sophisticated undead like Strahd or Vecna operate from a much more sophisticated place. Their compulsion is more of an obsession, most likely based on distorted memories and perceptions from their pre-undead life. They're tortured and pulled toward life, but like a puppy in a shop window, it's just out of reach. All that is just a starting place, just somewhere to plant a flag in the center of your contextual circle. Using these concepts as a jump-off point, let's dig into the BBEG Builder, a cool tool I've developed to make captivating villains. I like to start with what business school students call a positioning statement. This is a modified version of that exercise that concisely outlines the core motivation for your BBEG. It's a simple template. I am of, and I believe that, and I will stop at nothing until. Here's an example. I am Sauron of Mordor. I believe that an age of darkness must consume the land, and I will stop at nothing to find the One Ring until I use it to destroy the world of men forever. Pretty simple. The positioning statement subtly references fronts, which was introduced by the game Dungeon World and popularized by Sly Flourish. Fronts are a tool to manage the ongoing storm of your antagonist in the background of your campaign. My DM toolkit for campaign prep and play has an awesome tool for creating and tracking fronts, but more on that in another video. The positioning statement gives you access to simply articulating their primary goal, and that gives you an anchor to ask the magic question. If this is true, what else is true? It's really the underlying question in every section of the BBEG Builder, just asked from different angles. It's a question that gives you access to creativity and believability. The next thing I work on is the origin story. I spent a lot of time and energy trying to figure out how to make this efficient and effective. What I mean by that is, how do I invest the least amount of time in their backstory while getting the most potential role-playing value out of the exercise? As it turns out, And contrary to my initial hypothesis, the ideal, bond, and flaw concepts from D&D 5th edition really are a great tool. It's how you prompt them that makes all the difference. Consider that each of these, the ideal, the bond, and the flaw, is not a genetic trait, but rather something that was created out of the BBEG's life experiences. In order to create such an indelible mark, these experiences would have to be powerful themselves. They would have to be catalysts that imprinted the psyche of our BBEG. I made this pretty handy. Just start by consulting the list of catalysts for ideas. I'll write a couple sentences about a major life event, and then the ideal, the bond, or flaw that it created. These not only lend to motivation, but they inform how the BBEG behaves. And this really is the most important thing. Behavior is speech and action, and that's role-playing. Example, the mind flayer Xelinex dabbled in psychedelics as a young illithid. He zoned out and nearly drowned in a brain detoxifying tank, which caused him a pathological fear of standing water or other liquids. Weird, but plausible. Now, when Xelinex is confronted with any standing liquid of any depth of concern, you can have fun pretending to freak out, and you can use the history to guide the way you play the role, creating more authentic reactions to standing liquids. Usually these micro stories are pretty tragic, so I find it's nice to inject some personality traits as well, like humor or the propensity to spout aphorisms or other weird quirks, like how the Joker goes from all smiles to psychotic yelling in the blink of an eye. I love that. This is generally a good place to consider their outward appearance too. What kind of creature are they? How big are they? What's their hair, eye, skin color? Do they have horns? Do they have a tail? Do they have creepy liquid oozing out of orifices? You might even have a picture or a symbol that identifies them. I'm sure many folks would be satisfied to stop there, but my extensive research into villain development yielded a few more cool tricks to breathe life into this important character. I call this thought exercise intent. Nobody thinks that they're the bad guy. That's being evil just to be evil, and we're not doing that. I'll start from the context that the BBEG believes that they are, in fact, in the right. Their cause is justified, and they are the true heroes of their own story. Of course, they're totally bonkers. This is the BBEG we're talking about. They're not good. They are the bad guy or girl or gibbering mouther. But looking in from their distorted context, they just can't see that. Yes, we understand their origin, but we also need to understand their present day state of mind. I need to know the context of their distorted worldview right now, so I can roleplay a fully formed character. Intent, therefore, is divided into 3 simple blocks: inner voices, flawed world, and bad choices. We all have voices in our head. They're constantly telling us what's right and what's wrong. It's just that for the BBEG, these voices are totally messed up and dysfunctional, like winning is the only true virtue, or attachments make me vulnerable. I have a list of common villainous voices handy to help me choose 3. Next, I reread my positioning statement and consider its validity. What is the perceived flaw in the world that this villain is trying to correct? Is the villain's motivation noble or misguided? Are they actually doing the right thing in the wrong way? Or is what they're planning just really wrong? Then I consider the nature of their plans. That's the hallmark of a real villain. Bad choices. Villains with noble aims are still villains because the solutions they seek are terrible. And I mean, literally, they inflict terror. A great example of this is Thanos. Hey, let's kill 50% of beings to cut back on resource usage. His goal is mercy, but his plan, diabolical. Using your short answers as touchstones, you'll feel a lot more confident role-playing your villain with depth and unique flavor. Plus, there are 2 more tools in the BBEG Builder. The first concerns your BBEG's minions. How is their criminal enterprise structured? Who are their lieutenants or key assets? Why are they loyal to the BBEG, and what have they been promised? Under what circumstances might they betray the BBEG? These are questions that unlock the politics of the BBEG's operation, which help inform how you roleplay the minions as well. Finally, I've included a tool for tactical analysis. It's very compatible with Keith Amon's The Monsters Know What They're Doing. It uses a concept called the ability contour to help you understand the way a creature fights based on their ability scores. There's a bunch of help with this too. Plus, you can carefully map attacks, abilities, and their own sense of morale in the event that the battle isn't going well. Okay, that's it. I hope this inspires you to create some awesome BBEGs. And check out rpgvanwinkle.etsy.com to download this cool homebrew tool today.